Hi, I'm Christina, astrologer at Heart Horizon Astrology and podcast host of Astrology with Heart. Welcome to episode 3, where we'll be talking about the new moon in Libra. It's taking place on the 21st of October at 1:25 GMT. That's Greenwich Mean Time. I'm based in England, so if you're somewhere else, please just adjust for your location. I'm going to run through the Libra psychological archetype, then the shadow, the kind of negative, unhealthy side of Libra, and finally take a look at this new moon we've got with a very exciting and complex yod pattern. It's always useful to have your natal chart when listening. If you have one, great, bring that with you. If you don't have one and you like one, you can go to my website, hearthorizonastrology.com, and click on create a natal chart. You're going to need your date of birth, time of birth, and exact location, and it will create a natal chart for you. So, Libra has a tri-rulership. It rules over relationships, finances, and values. So do expect that any or a combination of the three is very likely to be central at this new moon. Libra orientates through the social realm. It identifies with others and is able to look at situations from their perspective. People and situations are weighed for fairness and harmony, and decisions are often processed by imagining how choices land across a field of stakeholders. Libra avoids a direct confrontational approach, favoring a diplomatic and more harmonious style. It's why Libra is known to be very charming. This sign seeks balance by smoothing out rough edges, which preserves connection but can hide authentic needs. Healthy Libra is open, honest, and graceful, while unhealthy Libra can people please, sacrificing inner truth for external equilibrium. The I want what you want stance. At its best, Libra synthesizes opposites into a third, more elegant solution. It values give and take and win-win scenarios. So this new moon invites us not to keep the peace at any cost, but to craft relationships and agreements that reflect a creative compromise. The shadow side of Libra, so indecision and procrastination, weighing up all the different variations and freezing instead of forward motion. People pleasing and boundary erosion, saying yes, but feeling angry inside. Passive aggression and indirect conflict. So politeness that tends to have a bit of an undertone that doesn't link with what it seems to be on the surface. Superficiality, very similar, having this outer foil that is polite and composed and charming, but doesn't really represent what's going on underneath. Being polite but masking grudges. And an overdependence on external validation. So self-worth is linked to the thoughts and opinions of other people. So at this new moon, we often look at the ruler of the moon. And the ruler of Libra is Venus. And Venus happens to be in the sign of Libra. And this really emphasizes those qualities of compromise, harmony, balance, listening skills, so listening to other people, and considering the value of other people in our lives. This is less a time of thinking and more a time of interacting in order to learn and grow. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the chart next, so I can show you this beautiful yod pattern that we have. If you're listening in only, then please do click on the link below, the blog link below, and you'll find the chart is also in there and you can take a look at the same time. So this new moon in Libra on the 21st of October. Right, the chart I've got here is slightly more simplified just so I can show you some of the key aspects happening. So if we look here at the Sun and the Moon, 28 degrees Libra, you'll see that there is 2 squares happening, one here to Pluto, 1 degree of Aquarius, and another square happening with Jupiter in Cancer. So I can say from those 2 squares, and squares usually indicating a bit of a challenge, perhaps some conflict, that it's going to be very intensely emotional. We've got the Moon for emotion, got the Moon in Libra, relationships, values, finances. The square to Pluto, well, it's in Aquarius, and Aquarius likes to progress things. Pluto in itself is very much about clearing out the trash, killing what doesn't work, and that's going to help us move forward a little easier into the future. I think that Aquarian impact might cause us to be maybe a little bit more logical, even though Pluto would tend to be quite turbulent at a psychological level. It's a fixed water sign, so it does feel emotions quite intensely. That Aquarius there might take the sting out of that a little bit and enable us to maybe see things a little bit more clearly from a logical perspective. It might also lead to some psychological breakthroughs. Perhaps there's going to be a download here to the higher mind. Again, that's Aquarius, which might adjust things for us. And then that square there to Jupiter in Cancer. Well, Cancer again, moon energy. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion, good fortune, joy. But we do find with that expansion that it can really amplify whatever energy that is. And so, if Cancer is going to be quite emotional, nurturing, kind of needy, looking for more support, it's going to amplify all of that as well. And with a square, it's going to be tricky. It's always going to be a little bit tricky with a square. It's like you can't quite see round the corner with a square, and it's just this constant challenge that we have. And to add a little bit more insult to injury, if you follow these blue lines, these deeper blue lines here that looks like it's got a K, there's 2 of them here, and what you can't see on the chart is they actually connect. Those 2 blue lines would connect the other end into a sextile. And so this is our Yod pattern. A very exciting, a very complex Yod pattern, because we've got the Sun and the Moon, they're in a conjunction. We come down here, we've got Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction, and then we've got Uranus. So there's a 5-planet interplay going on. So what tends to happen is up here we have our focal area, and our focal planets are the new moon. So it's just surging all this energy into this new moon. And then down at the bottom, this is a 150 degree, it's what we call a quincunx, and it's a very, very, very tricky aspect, because the planets here don't really have anything in common with the planets here, and they can't quite see things eye to eye, and energetically that means it tends to be misaligned in some way, and it's a requiring of an adjustment, and it's going to be kind of an awkward adjustment. So you've got the new moon, you've got this Libra energy, this need to be liked, this need to people please, this looking at things from another person's perspective, this understanding that you know, in a relationship, there's things that I want, there's things that you want, but they're not always the same. And so we have to find a middle ground, a point of compromise, which means that maybe I don't get all that I want, maybe you don't get all that you want, but we get something that can work for us both. And I do wonder if that's what's going to come under fire a little bit here. So if we follow it down to Uranus in Gemini, I mean, Uranus is such a game changer, it's such an innovator, and it's this very sparky, almost shocking, surprising energy. It's so intermittent. Libra is a very stable and steady energy. I want you to imagine you switch the light on and the light is on and it remains on. And I always call Uranus the faulty switch. Sometimes you flick the switch and it kind of comes on, or it goes off when it wants to. So we're dealing with this kind of erraticness and surprisingness. So something very shocking or something very surprising could happen. And with Gemini is another very, very social sign. This could happen in a social setting. This could be some kind of communication, a conversation that you have. Perhaps something comes out that's a little bit surprising, and you're not really sure what to make of it and how it will feed into any type of compromise or the relationship that you're in. So that's, you know, one thing that could happen. Gemini is very much about the information that we take in. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a social interaction or a conversation that's vocalized. It could be some other kind of information, perhaps something that you see on social media, perhaps something that you're reading in the papers, or an article that you've read, or even a podcast that you've listened to. So some kind of data that might be surprising, might be shocking, definitely not expected, could be having an impact on this new moon. And then the other side, we've got this dualistic energy going on here. We've got Saturn in the sign of Pisces, which is still in retrograde. And we've got Neptune that's at the 0, which is the Aries point. 0 Aries, and also in retrograde. And so retrograde planets tend to work a little bit different to planets when they're direct. They tend to be a lot more internalized, introjected almost. So they're not always physically manifested as such. They tend to be kind of within. And that can create a kind of pressure cooker environment where we're holding something. Oh, I forgot to add that Uranus is also retrograde, but Pluto itself has gone direct now. So we've got this kind of a lot of internalized energy going on, and this could be things that are unsaid. So with Saturn and Neptune, and that conjunction's been there for quite a while. Saturn can be a repressive energy, a restrictive energy. It can slow things down and delay them. And then Pisces itself, well, Pisces is very much about transcendence, and it's the energy of dissolving. So you've got Saturn, which is kind of these boundaries, these borders, and then you've got Neptune that just dissolves them away. And so there's a kind of a ambiguous energy about that. Things are not quite certain. Structures are not quite as structured or as grounded as we felt they were. Things are not quite as physically fixed as we felt they were. Neptune is, it tends to be quite changeable. It's a mutable sign. So we could find things are not quite as solid, and we can't take them for granted as we have. And then obviously we've got Neptune there in Aries, and I often feel that Aries, especially on the Aries point of that 0, is very much about our sense of self, our sense of identity, and again Neptune with that dissolving energy. And so, we might be questioning who we are. So if we put some of that together with what I've spoke of before, this new moon looking at, well, where are we being overly harmonious? Where are we maybe people pleasing and not really considering what we want and desire inside of ourselves. Are we feeling that things are not maybe as stable as we would like them to be, and that's causing us to have a little bit of a rift here? Or are we feeling that our identities are not expressed within this relationship, that we can't be who we want to be, or maybe we don't quite know who we want to be, because in this relationship we're not really sure who we are at all. You know, and then you've got Uranus, the other side of Uranus, which is about being unique and authentic. So we do have quite an interplay here that could be around authenticity, who we are, our particular identities. Another slight take on it with that Neptune in Aries is Aries' association with passion, with anger, and with frustration, and Saturn there being repressed. And so we might be repressing parts of ourselves. We might be repressing things that we want to say, things that we want to do, things that we want to be, but we don't feel we can because they don't quite align with this relationship. Or, and it doesn't always have to be relationships, remember the tri-rulership of Venus, or our values. You know, we're really considering our values right now, and something doesn't quite align here. It's not in line with who we are. And Uranus can be very surprising, very shocking, very... even though it's a fixed sign, it does tend to have a little switcheroo on occasion. So it might just say, look, just step out there and be who you are. Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. You know, and then we've got these squares coming in, which is really ramping up the emotion. You know, Jupiter in Cancer, a water sign. Pluto here, another water sign, but in Aquarius. So we've got that linkage here to Uranus, that kind of surprising energy, that, you know, who we are at most authentic level. And just to add a little bit more flavor, we've got this opposition happening with Chiron, 24 Aries. And I've mentioned Chiron before, Chiron being the wounded healer. And so we often have some kind of wound that no matter what we do, we can't quite remove it. It's the thorn in our side, but we can't quite remove the thorn from our bodies. And so we always feel that pain. But we're so used to that pain, we're very wise to it, and we do help others with it. We do help to heal others. So whenever we see kind of Chiron, and especially in such a complex pattern like this, we know that something is going to be quite triggering, you know. And again, in Aries, it could be that triggering of that questionability of who I am, my identity again, or holding on to that anger maybe. Definitely with Jupiter in Cancer, Cancer can be quite a passive aggressive, so it doesn't always feel that it can properly say what it wants to say about what it feels. So, you know, Chiron there, with an opposition, we tend to get a little bit of seesawing that goes on. Oh yeah, let's just merge back into the partnership, all is well, all is fine, don't do anything, don't rock the boat. But ow, every now and then there's that little ouchie, there's that little sting that happens because something hurts me and I keep trying to cover it up. So this is you know, this really suggests a lot going on here. And you know, I just want to pull this back to relationships, yes, values as well, and also the third area of Libra being finances. You know, so if it's not a relationship, if it's not so much about your values, what about your financial situation? You know, where are you? Where are your finances? What do they look like right now? Are you happy? Are they in a healthy state? Are they not in a healthy state? Are you gaining money? Are you losing money? if any of this energy is associated with perhaps the 8th house of shared resources, and perhaps things are not in a good place within a partnership. Is there some kind of divorce happening right now? Perhaps there's going to be some kind of settlement and finances are in the mix. Equally on the other side, if it's, perhaps a marriage is taking place and finances are becoming shared, then there's going to be a growth in finances. So, it's always a good idea to take a look at your own natal chart. As I mentioned before, you're very much welcome to go onto the website and create your chart there if you do have your date, time and place of birth. And it just gives you a little bit more information to work with, because where these planets fall in your chart is going to tell you a lot about what area of your life could be affected at this new moon. And I'd be surprised with how much is going on that you don't have a little wobble somewhere. I'm going to end today with a few questions for reflection and one ritual that will help you connect with this new moon in Libra. So the first question is, where in my relationships have I been smoothing over differences instead of naming what I truly need? Number 2, what would balance and reciprocal exchange look like with a specific person or in a repeating pattern I want to change? Number 3, what one modest, honest commitment can I make now that supports long-term fairness rather than instant approval? Number 4, in what area might I be tempted to overpromise or expand too fast? And what is one concrete boundary I can set to keep my growth sustainable? And the last one, what would I create differently if beauty and truth were equally important in the outcome? That's an interesting one. So there's just one ritual here, and there's actually a few more on the blog post if you do want to read the link below. But this one I think is really lovely. So this is called a relationship reset ritual. So you create a simple kind of altar with 2 candles and a shared object that represents a key partnership. So something between 2 people. Sit facing the other person. You can sit on the floor or you can sit on chairs opposite each other. And each one of you in turn will state one need and one boundary and speak them out loud. And then together you will write a mutual intention on a note. I want you to write it down, pop it in an envelope, and hold on to it until the next new moon. So thank you so much for watching or listening. You're awesome. Thank you. Please feel free to follow, leave a review, comment. You're happy to chat away and share. And I'll be back in episode 4.